Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me again. Today it's lawfare and not warfare. On the back of that, everyone is talking about civil war. In fact, the real battles are going on inside courts, and some of them have been won. And here's one you've probably not heard about. The fact that three appellant court judges, the appellant court, if you didn't know, is the second highest court in the land. Three appellant court judges unanimously upheld a decision to go to trial next week on election fraud in England. That's right, a court case against the shenanigans that go on inside many elections up and down the country, and the ramifications are going to be huge if the case is successful in proving the fraud, which based on the evidence it should be. But I bet you've never heard of this case because the MSM absolutely refused to cover it, and when they do have a little snivelly snidey comment about it, it's usually along the lines of sore loser or something like that. There was one this week where they talked about the appeal court case and the fact the litigant won. Come on to that in a moment. But they went on and banged on about the technicalities that the appeal was about. Completely trivial, completely irrelevant. The process for getting any legal recourse for an election that isn't run properly is not explained particularly well. And so the litigant, in putting submissions together, didn't quite get it 100% accurate. But that doesn't mean to say that the case is not legitimate. It's just a minor trivial point, and those trivial points were thrown out because they were raised during the initial court hearing, and they were dismissed then as being trivial irrelevancies. But no, these people wanted to appeal it and just rump up the costs for no reason. So what is the case? Well, the case is being brought by Graham Moore of the English Constitution Party. It's the only party in this country that stands up for this country. Talking about England, of course. Scottish, as we know, have the Scottish National Party and a couple more. Wales has Plaid Cymru. Northern Ireland has many more. But in England, there is only the English Constitution Party that speaks for England. And all they're really after is the Constitution installed and operated as it was meant to be, and the country run on those principles. And isn't that much to ask, really. But I'm standing in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election earlier in the year. A by-election that was won by Sarah Pochin from Reform by a slither of votes. Graham was a candidate and he lost. And according to the vote count at the end, he got 50 votes. The trouble was he had 50 votes a few years earlier in Croydon, when he stood in Croydon. I think it was Croydon. But one of the southern constituencies, he stood there and he got exactly 50 votes then. And it would be a statistically anomaly for him to achieve 50 votes exactly in two elections. It's ludicrous and ridiculous. But it's all down to the way the votes are counted. Votes are counted in little bundles, stacked in 50s, and then they count the bundles, and anything left over it, that's the random little bit, the little slice that goes on. So these 50 stacks are then counted and allocated. But it's so easy within those 50 stacks to put a cover sheet or, a top on one, bottom on it, that says for one party, and however many in the middle could be for any random party that they choose to see fit. And that appears to be what happens. This isn't the first instance. Other elections have taken place around the country where it has been noted and identified, but no one's been able to take the case forward because the procedure wasn't clear, they weren't in a position to financially, or they didn't have the backing or legal know-how. Fortunately, Graham is a brilliant litigant. I keep saying this, and I keep saying it. When he walks into court, judges take notice. That's how good he is. When he walks into court, judges take notice. So, as a result of his being in the election as a candidate, he was in a position to bring this case forward, because that is the law of the land, and that is what he did. He was successful in the first round of the case and was going to all set for trial early next week. Come back to that in a moment. When two of the litigants appealed it on these silly little infractions. And as I say, the three appellate judges threw it out. Unanimous decision. The court case goes on. So next month in Chester, beginning next month, in fact it's next week, never mind next month, it's next week in Chester Crown Court, the case for free and fair elections across the country is going ahead. Now, this is a landmark case because it's significant in its constitutional element. That if Graham is successful, it has ramifications which could impact, by rights, he could even void the entire general election last year. I don't think the judges will take it that radically, but in reality they should. They should void last year's election, and we should start again with a new election and Parliament closed down until we get a new government in place. But somehow I think they will avoid that decision. But what we'll have is Graham showing once and for all that election fraud is rife across the country and it needs to be stopped. And people need to be held account. And once you start holding a few people to account, the rest will fall into line, because there's nothing like fear, especially with the jail sentences involved if it's proven to be true. Nothing like fear to get people motivated to behaving and adhering to the law. But it isn't just MSM that's been quiet. Apart from Andy the Gabby Cabby, who's done a brilliant job with the mass following that he's got on his channel, most of the influencers have been dead silent. There was one caller who mentioned it to Paul Thorpe in a phone-in show he did the other week, and he fluffed and ummed and ahed all the way through it and said, yeah, maybe he should talk about it, and then did absolutely zip, because they're not interested, because it's England and not British. But anyway, Andy the Gabby Cabby has done a brilliant job. Nods to him. If you're not following him, I recommend you do so. I believe Liam Tufts has reached out now and does want to cover it this weekend. Thank you, Liam. If that goes ahead, much appreciate that. So next week in Chester Crown Court, Graham Moore from the English Constitution Party is taking them to court to prove the elections were not free and fair, and that he did indeed get more votes than were allocated to him, and therefore there was errors with the count, and they were deliberate and fraudulent. There's some other actions that went on. He will probably raise those during the court case, but they may or may not get thrown out, but they will be dealt with at a legal action further down the road. So if you can support Graham next week in Chester Crown Court, he would really appreciate that. If you could be there in person, that would be really cool, because the more people that turn up and support it, it shows at the court that people are genuinely interested. But if you can't be there and you think this case is important because it does impact elections and fraud is rife and it goes round and round, and because the MSM haven't supported it, and because word has been difficult to get out because everyone's been silent, if you can support it, I'll put a GoFundMe link down there. If you've got a £5 or a tenner, you can pop into the pot. He would really appreciate that, because the costs are going to be massive and it will likely bankrupt him long before he's able to ever get any recompense from them. I'll put all those links down below. I do appreciate you watching today. Please, if you've enjoyed this and you find it useful, please hit my subscribe button. I'm trying to build the channel up, and I do appreciate every subscription I get. If you want to leave a comment below, again, greatly appreciate that. I do like to have conversation with the people who are watching. But thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you again soon. Take care.